Hey everybody, I'm Lane. I'm sitting here at Cigars and More with Harris. We're with the Cigar Cafe, and we wanted to put together a couple of instructional videos. I know Harris gets some how-to questions here and there when he's here in the shop, and we wanted to sort of take a few minutes to answer some of those questions. Harris, you want to talk a little bit about one of those questions?
Yeah, so probably the most often asked question is, how do I cut a cigar? What's the proper way? Or people don't ask and chop off, half an inch of their cigar.
Right, and really the important part is that every cigar, whether you're talking about a cigar with a rounded cap or a torpedo-shaped cigar, is going to have sort of a finite cap on it. And you want to cut into the cap, but you don't want to cut past the cap, because the cap is what holds the wrapper onto the binder. And if you cut past the cap, you're going to end up your cigar is going to come unraveled on you, and it's still smokable, but it's going to be sort of a less enjoyable experience.
Yeah, that's really the most important thing to keep in mind is not to cut past the cap. And most cigars, when you look closely at them, have a line, like Lane said, right around the top area. I mean, you really don't need to cut very much off.
And torpedo-shaped vitolas really sort of introduce some complexity to it. So today I've got an Oliva Series V Milano, and you can see that it's a torpedo shape. But rather than a cap that comes to here, your cap is all the way down here, and you still don't want to cut past it, but you do want to make sure that you're getting a cut, because ultimately sort of the wider your cut is, the more airflow you're going to get through your cigar, the better your draw is going to be.
Ready to cut and light up?
Yeah, and we've got a couple of different cutters. Harris, I know that you've got a Cigar V here. What's the other one? Is that a punch?
Yes, I have a punch from Cigar. This is the big ring gauge punch. It takes a little bit larger punch out of the cigar, which is nice on bigger ring gauge cigars.
And I have a double guillotine, and this double guillotine is a little different. A lot of times you'll see double guillotines where sort of both wings move, and then this one you've got a fixed wing on this side, and then the other wing moves to match. So this is actually probably going to be a little easier to cut with than some of the double guillotines where both wings move. Ultimately, what you're looking to do is you're looking to line up the blades with the portion of the cigar where you want to make your cut. And you want to make sure that you get a good, straight, even cut.
Yeah, that's really key to get that even cut. I'll show you guys the Cigar V cutter also that we have here. It's the metal V cut that has incredibly sharp blades and works really well. It's a nice metal body cutter, and then we also have a nice cigar torch. I believe it's a triple flame. Another tool we have here.
I think we plan to follow up this video with a separate video of once your cigar is properly lit, or once your cigar is properly cut, how to go ahead and light it. And there, just like with cutters, there are a couple different schools of thought on how you do that. And you're looking to make sure that you get an even burn across the entire end of the cigar. I think most of the cigars that we have today, they're all basically a flat end. Sometimes when you start talking about Perfecto cigars and some of those vitolas, you end up with a tapered end that's open where you're supposed to light it, and so there's a little less guesswork involved in lighting those. Harris, you want to lead us off? What are you about to cut?
So I'm about to cut the Romeo y Julieta Nicaragua. It's the first Nicaraguan release from the Romeo y Julieta line. So I think I will V-cut this one.
Okay.
let's see. So I'm going to take this. The nice thing about this V cutter is you just put it right in there on the back. You can't cut too far with it, and then it takes a nice little V cut out of there.
And I've got a Cigar V cutter. I think I have the same color and everything that you're holding there. The nice part about V cuts is it produces a narrow cut down the middle of the cigar. You're not going to get anything in your teeth, and if you need to cut it 2 or 3 times to get a wide enough cut to get proper airflow through the cigar, you can come back and recut it. It's very easy to line up.
And I did actually cut this one a second time. Sometimes the first V cut might not go deep enough for you, so you'll cut it a couple more times if needed.
And I've had cheap V cutters that were $5. I've had the Wolf V cutter, which is 15 or $20. The Cigar V cutter is really head and shoulders above all the V cutters I've used before. There are more expensive V cutters out there. You can get some of the shop V cutters that are going to be in excess of $100, but for $40-$50, the Cigar is a good value to performance point. And it is a quality cutter that's easy to get the same cut every time.
Yeah, it's hard to beat the lifetime warranty also. I mean, if you ever have a problem with it, they will take care of it for you, no questions asked.
All right, well, as far as this Milano goes, something with a torpedo shape is going to be really hard to V-cut.
Yes.
Not saying you can't do it. The end's going to end up kind of spongy. You may have to do it several times. I've
tried it before, but it's not ideal.
It's not worth the trouble that you end up with. So for this one, we're going to straight cut this, and this is also a Cigar cutter, and everybody knows who Cigar is, so we're not going to burn a lot of time talking about it. But it's a good cutter. It's heavy. It has, like I said, sort of the fixed wing double guillotine configuration. It operates very much like my Paleo cutter, which is probably my favorite cutter at home, where you've got the two pieces that slide against each other, but one of them sort of sits still while you cut it. So what I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to turn it this way, and you can probably just barely make it out here where the edge of the cap is, and I'm going to cut this. I'm going to cut back from it.
One thing we're learning today is it's not ideal to cut cigars over your laptop keyboard.
So I've got a good straight cut right here, and then just squeeze. And I end up with a very even, very level cut.
Yeah, I hear a lot of people describe, how far to cut the torpedo cigars. A lot of people ask about how far do I cut the torpedo. A good way to think about it is it's about 1/3 of the curve. If you think of it in those terms, and you can always cut it a second time if it's not enough for you. You just don't want to go past that cap.
Yeah, and this straight cut, the sort of the gauge of the cut, it's a little bit wider than what you'd get out of a typical punch, but there's still plenty of torpedo left on it beyond the cut.
So I have another cigar here that I'm going to punch with this is the Cigar 11 millimeter punch cutter, which, like I said, is going to be a little bit bigger than your average punch cutter, which I really like. I like the bigger punch, but you want to just set it on there on the cigar lightly and cut back and forth, kind of ease it on there. If you push too hard, a lot of people will crack the head of the cigar and
then it comes unwound like it would if you cut past the cap.
Right, so you just want to ease it on there. You can see it takes a nice, clean, round section out of there, and then the cutter just holds it right in there, and then we'll push that right out. And
I'm glad you brought a punch in here because I don't use a punch often. And so, I feel like I get ugly punches when on the rare occasion where I decide to punch a cigar.
That is a big problem with, especially if your cigar is a tad on the dry side, the punch can mangle that. It'll crack a good bit. But on well humidified cigars, it normally does pretty well.
Okay. Well, guys, thanks for spending a few minutes with us. Hopefully you picked up a trick or two. We appreciate you listening and watching the Cigar Cafe, whether it's the podcast or the YouTube channel. Follow us. Hopefully you'll learn a little bit about cigars. Hopefully you'll get a good laugh in here and there. Thanks, Harris.
Thanks, Lane.